So I want to expand a little bit on the exercise of using shoulder in for a way to set up your horse for a little bit nicer lengthening stride across the diagonal in the trot. And one thing I want to go over with you is the seat, when you're staying seated and you're not rising in the trot when you're in the lengthening mode. And what happens is, you would want to have your horse acquainted with of course, the half halting in the shortening and in the lengthening stride in your sitting trot. And to simplify it, of course, it's just, a little preview here, but you want to make sure that when you slow down, you want to have a tiny little bit more knee pressure, positive tension in your knees. Your lower legs go back. I'm going to exaggerate this a little bit for you so you can see it, because the farther back you go with your lower legs, the more you go into the slow down reflex buttons of the horse. And then when you are ready to go forward, your knees will be releasing a little bit of the pressure and your lower legs will go forward. And then you're going to activate, swing nicely with your horse, and it doesn't have to be a lot of difference. Then I'm going to go back here for a moment to the more condensed, collected trot. Slow knee pressure, lower legs are still going on rhythmically, and she's, giving me a tiny little bit of a wiggle with her hind end. That's because she's still figuring out what to do when I say to her in the front, wait, and then the hind end needs to learn to balance and stay in alignment with the front, of course. So here's a little bit more of the lengthening again, and again, it's very conservative. My legs are more forward. My hands might be, a little bit wider in the lengthening because the horse can, balance him or herself a little nicer on the wider hand set when you ask for more push from behind. So, and then I'm going to go from this fairly collected trot here with my legs a tiny bit farther back than, so you can see it, than I normally might do. But then you go from here into your shoulder in mode. Good girl. Straighten your horse, legs forward, hands wide, and you're going into the little bit larger trot stride, and it's not to be avoided that the horse will, of course, get a little bit, faster in the beginning. Ultimately, the speed is not what we're looking for. We want a larger, more cadenced, longer, elevated stride. But you have to start somewhere. And a lot of times the horse in the beginning, interprets our aids as more energy. And more energy and legs forward and hands wide. More energy means for a lot of horses, more speed in the beginning. Right? And you can't say no to that. And otherwise you're going to say no to too many things and it becomes too hard for the horse to understand what you're even trying to attempt. So here we are in shorter stride, collected mode. My lower legs are so that I can feel my ankle bones, a little bit farther back. Then again, shoulder in. Legs forward. Good girl. And you see that we're not getting like a lot of spectacular movement, of course, yet. We're in the beginning of this. So I'm exaggerating a little bit my lower leg position for you right now. So you can see how, the collected trot has to do with the reflex buttons that are farther back on the horse's torso. So, and then I'm going to go into shoulder in here. And as I'm going towards the short diagonal, legs come forward. And there we go. Very, very nice. And I still hold her and half hold her throughout the lengthening. So it's not a throwaway at all. It's not like, oh yeah, the faster and the bigger the stride, the better. Of course, it's not about speed, but about, a lift off and a little bit of a lengthening in terms of the stride length. But that needs to be cultivated. And this is the slow and steady and methodical way to start that. And each time you're doing it, you might get a little bit more. And of course, the horse doesn't understand in the beginning completely what we want. So if it gets a little bit more speedy, you have to excuse that because you can't do everything all at once and say no to everything. And for a horse, of course, naturally, if you ask for more energy, they think in terms of speed and they react that way, right? And here's shoulder in one more time. And then we're going to come across, legs forward, hands wide, and you get, a little bit of a larger stride, and then you come back here. And, that's just all that you can do in some of the sessions that you may have. I can tell that with Philly in particular, it's much better and much more appropriate to do these things in the posting trot yet. She's not strong enough for the lengthening in the sitting trot. So, I just kind of take inventory and say, okay, so much for that. We still have to do a little bit more homework before we can come back to this, and it will feel a little bit more, useful to both of us. But in the meantime, this was just a sort of a demonstration of the principles, and I hope this was useful and helpful to you. And it always is fun for me, of course. And I thank you for watching, and happy riding. And thank you, Philly. Good girl.